Hello everyone, this is Steven from the Even Steven channel, and today we are taking a look at the surround OF Mossberg and Son Inc. North Haven, Connecticut, USA. Actually, I don't know those right there. Model 351CB 22 long rifle only. What does that tell us? Very little, actually. So this is a very interesting, I don't want to say unique, but a very unusual semi-automatic 22 caliber rifle. We'll do let's do a very quick overview back to front, and then we'll kind of start talking about the features. So we have the buttstock with whatever this is, a loading port, nice wood, not sure the type, nice wood. A little bit of a kind of a cutout here for right-handed shooters. Sling loop, very nice. This is a very vintage 1950s, 1960s sling. Actually, I kind of like it. Got a little bit of a brass corrosion here, kind of cool. A little adornment on the pistol grip. We have a semi-pistol grip. We got that Mossberg 3-finger groove thing going on. Trigger guard. These are plastic. Manual safety, charging handle, grooves for a 3/8 inch like scope mount. Rear sight actually has a 2-position rear sight. We got the standard rear position on top, and this is kind of like maybe the more accurate precision sight. You know, using the same front sight, but maybe you're doing a slightly longer range, more precise sight. You use that. This does seem to be adjustable. You can kind of move this up, put this up and move this around. However, it seems to be pretty good where it is. Nice wood again. Barrel band, another sling attachment point here. And an approximately 18, I've also seen this listed as 17.5 inch long barrels. So this might be one of the 17.5 inch barrels. Now, I say that because honestly it's hard to tell. You know, these rifles, this vintage was made around 1950, 1960. You can look it up. Mossberg has a series of 351 semi-auto rifles, and this is just the CB. It's kind of in the middle. They had small incremental improvements over time. I think this one ran for like 3 years. The 351 KA ran for about 6 years. Again, just small incremental improvements. I wouldn't worry too much about which model is which. But the 351 is a very, very interesting and unusual rifle because you have basically a tube. It's a tube-fed rifle, but the tube is in the back. So if you're familiar with like little 22, particularly 22 lever action guns, you'll have something like this. And what you do, the way you load this rifle is you can do it from here, but you can also do it from the back and just drop them in. Is you basically just drop cartridges in here, and if you were to put them in here, you kind of put them in and fling them down a little bit. My camera, fling them down a little bit. And I'm not sure the exact capacity because once you go over like 10 rounds, it becomes really hard. This spring is giving you a lot of resistance. You can close it on more than 10 rounds. But there is just a tremendous amount of resistance in the gun, and it just doesn't seem practical to load it at a certain point. Even if there is a max capacity of, say, 15 rounds, you're struggling so hard to fight the gun that it just doesn't kind of get in diminishing returns at that point. So let's just throw, say you threw like 5 rounds in there, push it all the way in. There is a notch. It's a little hard to show you, but basically you have to have this pointed downward. And then turn it which way? Turn it clockwise. And now you have the rifle loaded. And the way this rifle works is that whenever the bolt goes rearward, I also forgot to mention the manual safety. Manual safety here, safe, fire. This does also have a manual bolt lock, so I'm going to use that bolt lock. It's a little hard to actuate. Okay, But basically the way it works is you pull it back to a certain point and you push this charging handle inward. And it just seems that you really have to go as far back as possible to get that to work. But what we have going on, let's see if I have a little pointing tool here. What we have going on is we have, I need some lighting assistance, let me see. Is down there, see right there, which looks kind of like a cartridge. That's the follower. And basically, whenever the bolt travels rearward, there's constant pressure from the spring pushing on the follower. And whenever the bolt goes backwards, so if you're charging it, the follower is going to throw a cartridge in the chamber. There. It's at just the correct angle and the right spot that whenever the bolt goes backwards, it's going to throw a cartridge in the chamber. It's basically spitting them out. That is my understanding of how this works. Now, if I'm incorrect, I'm sorry, I apologize. But I'm doing my best, looking at these super old vintage 1950s rifles, and that's my understanding of how it works. Just whenever the bolt travels backwards, it's constant pressure, it's going to throw cartridges up into the chamber. And it works pretty well, surprisingly. We have a pretty crisp trigger. So when I pull this trigger, the hammer mechanism is going to fly forward. You can see this. Saw that fly forward like that. Yeah, it seems to work pretty well. It's a pretty fun gun to shoot. The trigger is actually very nice. It's very nice and crisp. It's not a lot of recoil. It's enjoyable to shoot, and it's actually pretty accurate. Let me just get my targets. For whatever reason, the day I decided to do these targets, I decided to do it at shorter range. So we got Mossberg semi-automatic, 7 yards, which for an 18-inch rifle, it shouldn't be much. 10 yards, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 15 yards, still pretty good. But let's see, 20 yards, it's all right. I have a habit of, when I get to 20 yards, 15 yards, I have a habit of getting bad. And then 25 yards, I believe this is standing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25 yards standing. I think it's just another 25-yard shot. I think I might be aiming for here, or aiming just above here. You know, pretty good. Actually, pretty surprisingly good accuracy out of this little 22 for me on that day with that ammo, which was probably, it might have been Federal bulk pack. Remember that Remington bulk pack? You know, I don't think I was using CCI mini mags at the time, so it was like cheap bulk ammo. And yeah, I actually like this gun a lot. You know, I'm trimming the collection down, but I'm very, very tempted to keep this one. Or I was very tempted to put a scope on there. This is actually a very enjoyable gun to shoot. It's a really fun range gun. It's not really a tactical gun. It's not really the high-speed, low-drag thing. You know, things like the Marlin Model 60 and guns like this. The semi-automatic 2-Fed rifles. Yeah, I guess they sold, but I don't know if they ever sold all that well. People like box magazines. The Ruger 1022. Marlin had their own version of the Model 60 that had a box magazine, whatever it is, the Marlin Papoose, whatever it was. People want box-fed magazines. However, this gun's still pretty cool. I got a really good deal on this. Got this for about $100. I'm pretty sure it's worth more. It's got a little bit of rust on there. Front sight has a little brass bead there. And I didn't have to adjust the sights at all out of the box, and it was just really just good to go. And it's just a nice, cool little 22. And if you see something like this sitting in a gun store, you get a really good deal on it. The very distinctive visual thing is right here. When I saw this at the auction, I was like, what is that? What's going on? I knew it was a 2-Fed rifle. I was like, what is going on with this thing? I got to get me one of these. I got to check this gun out. And yeah. I will say taking it apart is a little bit weird because the trigger is in the lower receiver, and it's putting constant pressure on the action. So when you take it apart back together, like there's just tension on here all the time. You gotta make sure the receiver kind of goes in the right way and it's kind of in the right spot. It's a little weird. It's a little wonky. It's a little weird. However, when it's together, it's really nice. I hold this up a little bit. It actually seems a lot nicer. I really haven't taken it fully apart, as opposed to just taking the action out of the stock and cleaning it as best I could without taking the bolt out. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I'm very, very hesitant to take the thing apart. However, works pretty well. You might get a jam once in a while. That is important. You might get a jam once in a while. And you gotta be careful, because every time you pull back on this bolt, it's gonna throw another cartridge. It's gonna jam it up harder. So if you ever get a jam on this gun, keep in mind, first thing you do is take out the tube to relieve tension. Take out the tube, even just to relieve the tension on the follower, and that makes clearing malfunctions a lot easier, because you will eventually get some kind of malfunction in a 22 caliber rifle. And keep in mind, this is 22 long rifle only. Shorts and longs won't work, because it's designed to throw the cartridges in a certain way. So I believe if you use shorts or longs, it's not going to do it. And the reciprocating bolt is kind of calibrated for 22 long rifle. You might be able to get away with it, but it's really not made for it. It's not made for that. And at this day and age, it's not really worth buying 22 short and 22 long, other than for guns that are specifically made for it. Yeah, I think it's just going to about do it. This is Steven from the Even Stevie channel. Please don't like, sharing, and subscribing. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And I will see you next time. Thank you, and goodbye.